They were the closest of friends, the ultimate power duo, inseparable, unstoppable, and envied by many. Nicole Fontaine and Kadira Willis built their empires side by side, their names synonymous with success in the world of beauty and luxury. To the outside world, they were more than just best friends, they were sisters, bonded by ambition and an unbreakable loyalty. But beneath the glamorous photos and heartfelt social media posts, something sinister was brewing. What started as admiration twisted into something much darker. Resentment simmered behind forced smiles, and jealousy seeped into the cracks of their friendship. The woman Nicole trusted most was hiding a dangerous secret, one that would turn a thriving partnership into a brutal betrayal. On a night meant for celebration, under the dazzling lights of an extravagant mansion party, everything came crashing down. A single moment of violence shattered the illusion, leaving behind bloodstains on marble floors and unanswered questions. The world was left in shock. How did a friendship so powerful unravel into a crime so cold? What led to Nicole's horrifying final moments? And most chilling of all, had the betrayal been years in the making? Before we uncover the twisted truth behind this case, make sure you like this video and subscribe, where we bring you the most chilling tales of love, lies, and betrayal. Nicole Fontaine had everything most people could only dream of. She wasn't just a hairstylist, she was the hairstylist. The woman behind the signature looks of Hollywood's biggest stars, the one who could take a nobody and make them look like royalty with just a few strokes of her shears. Her work graced the covers of the world's most prestigious magazines, and luxury brands fought to collaborate with her, offering million-dollar deals just to have her name attached to their products. But Nicole wasn't just a businesswoman, she was a brand, an empire in the making. She had built herself from the ground up, mastering her craft, understanding the industry, and turning what had once been a small dream into a global phenomenon. Her name carried weight, her opinions shaped beauty trends, and her presence alone could turn a struggling brand into a household name. Yet for all the success, Nicole remained grounded. She prided herself on loyalty to her clients, to her team, and most importantly, to the people who had been there since the beginning. And at the top of that list was Kadira Willis. Kadira, better known as Caddy, was more than just a friend. She and Nicole had started together, working long hours in small salons, taking whatever clients they could get, hustling for a place in an industry that didn't hand out success easily. In those early days, they were inseparable. If Nicole had a big break, Kadira was right there celebrating with her. If Kadira landed a celebrity client, Nicole was the first to hype her up. They had promised each other that they would rise together. But somewhere along the way, the balance shifted. Nicole became a star. The star. The one whose name was mentioned in beauty circles with reverence. The one who got exclusive contracts with luxury brands. The one who had a wait list of celebrities dying for her magic touch. And Kadira didn't. She was talented, no one could deny that. She had opened her own high-end salon, a sleek, expensive space meant to compete with the best. But no matter how hard she tried, no matter how many connections she built, she could never quite reach Nicole's level. She was good, but she wasn't Nicole Fontaine. And the industry never let her forget it. To the outside world, they were still a power duo, two best friends conquering the beauty world together. But behind the scenes, things were different. Caddy had always been seen as Nicole's best friend. Never the star, never the visionary, never the woman who was setting trends and making history. She was the one in the background, the supportive friend, the second choice when Nicole wasn't available. And over time, that started to eat at her. It didn't help that Nicole's engagement to Keyshawn Davenport only widened the gap between them. Keyshawn wasn't just any man, he was a powerhouse in the music industry. A top executive who had the power to make or break careers. The kind of man who only aligned himself with winners. And he had chosen Nicole. Their engagement was perfect, at least on the surface. A love story straight out of a fairy tale. Nicole, the beauty mogul, and Keyshawn, the industry titan. Together, they were unstoppable. But to Kadira, it was another reminder that Nicole always won. Always had more. More fame, more money, more love. And that jealousy, the kind she had kept buried for years, started to take over. There were whispers in the industry. People noticed the tension, the way Kadira's smiles didn't always reach her eyes, the way Nicole seemed oblivious to the growing resentment right in front of her. Friends speculated about what was really happening behind closed doors, but no one knew just how deep the cracks had grown. It started as a thrill, something reckless, something dangerous. A secret that made Kadira feel powerful in a way she hadn't felt in years. Kadira had been sleeping with Keyshawn. Sleeping with Keyshawn wasn't just about attraction. It was about validation. About finally feeling like she had something Nicole didn't. In those stolen moments, she convinced herself she was winning. That Keyshawn wanted her. That it was only a matter of time before he realized what he already knew deep down, she was the one he was meant to be with, not Nicole. And so she waited. She played her role carefully, balancing between best friend and secret lover, all while picturing the life they would have together. She imagined the day Keyshawn would finally confess that he had been trapped in an engagement he never wanted. That Nicole was just a business move, a convenience, not the woman he truly loved. She convinced herself that he was only holding back because he didn't want to hurt Nicole. So she made it easy for him. She whispered in his ear, planting seeds of doubt, telling him that Nicole wasn't the woman he thought she was. That she didn't really love him, that she only loved the power, the status, the image. That they were the real love story, the one that made sense. But no matter what she said, no matter what she did, Keyshawn never wavered. And then, one night, she pushed too hard. She told him it was time. Time to stop pretending, time to tell Nicole the truth, time to start their life together. She expected hesitation, maybe even guilt, but what she got was something far worse. Keyshawn laughed. It wasn't nervous laughter. It wasn't the kind of laugh that softened a blow. It was cold. Dismissive. As if the very thought of leaving Nicole for her was ridiculous. And then came the words that shattered everything. "Caddy, you know what this was." Just 7 words. 7 words that stripped away every illusion she had clung to. She wasn't his future. She wasn't his love story. She was a mistake. A distraction. A secret he would take to his grave. And Nicole? She was still the prize. Still the woman he planned to marry. The woman he respected, the woman he chose. Something inside Kadira broke. It wasn't just about Keyshawn anymore. It was about everything. Years of being in Nicole's shadow. Years of watching her take everything, success, fame, power. And now, love too. No. Nicole didn't get to have it all. If she couldn't have Keyshawn, neither could Nicole. If she couldn't be the one standing at the altar, there wouldn't be a wedding at all. The jealousy that had been simmering inside her for years turned into something darker. Something dangerous. Nicole Fontaine had to go. Then came the night of Kadira's birthday party. Glamorous and extravagant, but beneath the flashing lights and flowing champagne, a sinister plan was already in motion. The night was dripping in luxury. Buckhead's elite poured into the grand mansion, their designer heels clicking against the marble floors, their laughter floating through the air like champagne bubbles. The guest list was a who's who of Atlanta's social scene, celebrities, influencers, executives, and industry moguls. Everyone who mattered was there, and they were all there for one reason, to celebrate Kadira Willis. This was her moment. Her night. The launch of her high-end salon had been the talk of the beauty industry, and now, she was finally being recognized as more than just Nicole Fontaine's best friend. At least, that's what she wanted people to believe. Everywhere she turned, she could hear the whispers. The backhanded compliments. The murmurs of how far she had come, but always with Nicole's name attached. She's finally making a name for herself, thanks to Nicole. She stole half of Nicole's clients. That's the only reason she's even relevant. Did you hear? Nicole was supposed to get that beauty deal, but Kadira undercut her. It's getting messy. Kadira smiled through it all, sipping her champagne, nodding graciously at the guests who fawned over her, pretending not to notice that every conversation still led back to Nicole. And then, like a queen stepping into her throne room, Nicole Fontaine arrived. Heads turned. Conversations paused. The energy in the room shifted as the woman everyone wanted to be walked in, exuding effortless power. She didn't need to announce her presence. She was the presence. Draped in a sleek, custom gown, her diamond-studded heels clicking in perfect rhythm, Nicole was everything Kadira hated to admit she still was: untouchable. Even here, at her own party, Kadira was just an opening act. Nicole was still the headliner. She felt it in the way Keyshawn's eyes lingered on Nicole. In the way guests naturally gravitated toward her. In the way the cameras always seemed to capture her first. And worst of all, she felt it when someone mentioned the news that had spread like wildfire earlier that week. Nicole had just secured the multi-million-dollar beauty deal that Kadira had spent months fighting for. It was a silent war, a battle of subtle glances and forced smiles. But Kadira was done playing defense. Tonight, she wasn't going to let Nicole win. Lifting her champagne glass high, she called for the room's attention. To Nicole, she said, her voice smooth, confident. My sister in success, my partner in crime, my best friend. No matter where life takes us, nothing can ever break our bond. The room erupted in cheers, cameras flashing as Kadira and Nicole clinked their glasses, locking eyes in a moment that looked like friendship. But beneath the polished veneer, there was something darker. Nicole smiled, but there was hesitation. A flicker of doubt. As if she knew, deep down, that this wasn't a toast to their friendship. It was a farewell. Because while the guests were raising their glasses in celebration, Kadira was already setting the wheels in motion for something far more sinister. Nicole Fontaine wouldn't leave this party the same way she came in. By the time the night was over, their so-called sisterhood would be shattered. And soon, Nicole would be gone forever. The night was alive with energy, pulsing with the kind of luxury only the rich and powerful could afford. Inside the grand Buckhead mansion, the air was thick with the scent of expensive champagne and designer perfumes, the bass of the music rattling the chandeliers above. It was well past midnight, and Kadira's birthday party was at its peak, celebrities laughing over cigars, industry elites whispering about multi-million-dollar deals, influencers posing for the perfect shot. Every detail had been designed to impress, to cement Kadira's place among the elite. But none of them knew what was coming. Amid the laughter and flashing lights, a group of masked gunmen slipped through the estate's entrance, moving with eerie precision. The moment the first gunshot rang out, the party shifted from luxury to sheer terror. A scream pierced through the music. Then another. Panic spread like wildfire as guests pushed and shoved, knocking over crystal glasses and toppling over velvet chairs in their frantic attempt to escape. Bottles shattered against the marble floor. Someone tripped, a terrified shriek escaping their lips as they scrambled to their feet. But the gunmen didn't care about the chaos. They weren't there for them. They had one target. Nicole Fontaine. She saw them before they reached her, the glint of their weapons flashing under the chandelier's glow. Instinct kicked in, run. She turned on her heels, her heart slamming against her ribs as she bolted toward the grand hallway. But they were faster. She barely made it halfway when the first bullet struck. A sharp, burning pain ripped through her chest, her body jerking from the impact. She stumbled, a strangled gasp leaving her lips. The second shot followed almost immediately, driving her backward. The party guests, frozen in horror, could do nothing but watch as Nicole's body trembled from the force of the bullets tearing through her. Then came the final shot. The bullet struck her face, and her world went black before she even hit the floor. Silence. For a moment, it was as if time itself had stopped. The once booming mansion now felt hollow, empty, the air thick with the scent of gunpowder and blood. Nicole Fontaine, the woman who had built an empire, who had been at the top of her game, now lay lifeless on the cold marble floor, her signature beauty ruined by the brutality of her death.
The killers didn't hesitate. They didn't need to. Their job was done. Without a word, they disappeared into the night, vanishing before the police could arrive. When law enforcement stormed the estate, sirens flashing against the sleek sports cars parked outside, the guests were still reeling from the horror they had just witnessed. Some were crying, their hands shaking. Others stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. But one thing was clear. This wasn't a robbery. It wasn't a random act of violence. This was a hit. A planned execution. And the only question that mattered now was, who ordered it? The morning after Nicole Fontaine's brutal murder, the headlines were everywhere. Celebrity hairstylist gunned down at high-profile party. News outlets ran the story on a loop, social media was flooded with speculation, and the beauty industry was in mourning. But behind the scenes, detectives were already piecing together a far more sinister truth: this was no random act of violence. This was an execution. And someone had ordered it. As investigators combed through surveillance footage and interviewed traumatized partygoers, a pattern began to emerge. The gunmen hadn't just stormed the mansion, they had moved with precision, heading straight for Nicole. They didn't hesitate, didn't waste time. It was a hit, and the deeper detectives dug, the more one name kept coming up. Kadira Willis. At first, it seemed unthinkable. Kadira had been Nicole's best friend, her closest confidant for years. They had built their careers side by side. But when detectives pulled Kadira's phone records, the truth began to unravel. In the days leading up to the murder, Kadira had exchanged multiple late-night calls with a man named Richard "Raw" Gates, her boyfriend, a known street figure with a history of violence. And those weren't just casual conversations. Then came the financial transactions. Bank records showed a series of withdrawals from Kadira's account, thousands of dollars in cash pulled just days before the shooting. Money that had disappeared without a trace. Detectives had seen it before: payouts, hush money, the cost of silence. But the most damning evidence came from someone who had nothing left to lose. Keyshawn Davenport. Nicole's fiancé had been quiet in the immediate aftermath, grieving, shaken. But as the investigation gained momentum, he sat across from detectives and told them everything. The affair. The obsession. The threats. Kadira hadn't just been sleeping with him, she had convinced herself that they belonged together, that Nicole was the only thing standing in their way. And when Keyshawn made it clear that he would never leave Nicole for her, something inside Kadira had snapped. Detectives leaned in as Keyshawn unlocked his phone, scrolling through months of text messages. And there it was. She thinks she's untouchable. That bitch gotta go. The words, raw and venomous, stared back at them. This wasn't jealousy. This wasn't heartbreak. This was a premeditated murder. And Kadira Willis had orchestrated the whole thing. Immediately, detectives moved swiftly. Early one morning, a team of officers arrived at Kadira's luxury condo. They knocked once. Then twice. No answer. Seconds later, they forced the door open. Inside, Kadira was caught completely off guard. She stood frozen in her designer robe, phone in hand, as officers swarmed in. There was no time to protest. No time to talk her way out of it. She was shoved against the wall, wrists yanked behind her back, cold steel cuffs snapping shut. You're under arrest for the murder of Nicole Fontaine. Her face, once poised and confident, twisted in shock. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. As she was dragged out of her penthouse in handcuffs, news cameras captured the moment. The woman who had spent years trying to outshine Nicole Fontaine was now just another criminal, her glamorous life over in an instant. But the real reckoning was still to come. On the day of the trial, the courtroom was packed. Journalists filled the gallery, their cameras ready to capture every reaction, every tear, every moment of reckoning. Spectators whispered among themselves, waiting for the final chapter of a story that had gripped the nation. At the center of it all sat Kadira Willis, her face blank, her once flawless image shattered under the weight of murder charges. For weeks, prosecutors had laid out the case in brutal detail. They painted Kadira as a woman consumed by jealousy, driven by an insatiable need to be Nicole Fontaine, not just her friend, not just her equal, but her replacement. They showed the jury her late-night calls to Richard Gates, the money transfers, the damning text messages. And then there was Keyshawn's testimony, the final nail in her coffin. The moment he took the stand, the courtroom fell silent. He spoke about the affair, how Kadira had lured him in with promises, how she had convinced herself they were destined to be together. But most of all, he spoke about the threats. How she would rage about Nicole in private, how she refused to accept that she would never be the woman by his side. His voice cracked when he described Nicole's final moments, how the love of his life had been slaughtered in cold blood, left to die in a pool of her own blood at what was supposed to be a celebration. And then came the text messages. She thinks she's untouchable. That bitch gotta go. The words rang through the courtroom like a death sentence. When the jury was sent to deliberate, no one expected it to take long. 4 hours later, they returned. Guilty. First-degree murder. Conspiracy to commit murder. Organized criminal activity. The judge wasted no time. Kadira Willis and Richard Gates were both sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. There would be no second chances, no appeals that could undo what had been done. Nicole Fontaine was gone, and the woman who had once called her a sister would never walk free again. As the bailiff moved to cuff her, Kadira's face remained emotionless. She didn't cry, didn't beg. She had spent so long believing she could take Nicole's life, her success, and her man. But in the end, she had lost everything. As she was led away, the room exhaled. Justice had been served. But no sentence could bring Nicole back. Jealousy is a dangerous thing. It starts as a whisper, a nagging thought in the back of the mind. Then it grows, slowly at first, then all at once, until it consumes everything. For Kadira Willis, it turned into an obsession, a hunger that couldn't be satisfied. She wanted what Nicole had, convinced that she deserved it more. But instead of working harder, instead of accepting her place in Nicole's shadow, she chose the darkest path imaginable. Kadira was supposed to be the one celebrating her success, not orchestrating her downfall. Instead of standing beside Nicole, she stood over her grave. Was it worth it? The envy, the lies, the ultimate destruction. In the end, Kadira lost everything, her freedom, her reputation, even the man she claimed to love. She spent years trying to take what belonged to Nicole, but the moment she pulled the trigger on their friendship, she sealed her own fate. What do you think? Could this tragedy have been avoided if Kadira had just let go of her jealousy? How does envy destroy even the strongest relationships? If this story shocked you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more cases where love, betrayal, and deadly ambition collide.